is quite challenging. Parenting today seems much more challenging than it was in our parents' time or many generations ago. But what I say actually is that while parenting seems more challenging, what it is just that things keep changing, things keep evolving. And if we're not meant to be parents at this time, we would not be parents at this time. So the fact that we're parents today, we're raising Gen Z, millennials, alpha generation. If you're raising a child today who's in secondary school or younger, you definitely have a Gen Z. You have younger Gen Zs actually. And if they are 6 or younger, they are now called the alpha generation. So things keep changing. And the main reason why we even talk about the generations is because there are slightly different nuances that we must be aware of. And with this generation, the biggest thing is the fact that they are digital natives and we are digital aliens, right? So a digital native means that these children do not know a world pre-digital. How many of us know that if you give a child a device, a 2-year-old a device, he or she will know exactly what to do and what to press. And you didn't teach them. And you're thinking, but how does this child know what to do? So the reality is that raising children today requires that we unlearn and we relearn. So that's the general umbrella under the intentional parenting that we really talk about and push a lot at Lagos Moms as a community and a company. And then specifically with the online safety series, the reason we're doing it is because our children are being raised in a digital world. A lot of parents don't particularly have the tools and the skill set and the resources to protect their children online. And we cannot leave it to chance. There's too many bad stories that I hear regularly. And a lot of this is because parents don't particularly know what to do when it comes to raising their children, keeping their children, um, give me a second, keeping their children safe online. They don't necessarily know what to do. So how can we solve that? So this particular project is actually being funded by Google not-for-profit. Um, what am I saying? Google is giving some not-for-profits and some companies funding to support different initiatives. And this was an initiative I came up with, which was basically how to ensure that we're raising digital citizens and how do we make sure that in the African continent, in the African context, we're doing it right. So that's a little bit in terms of my background, why we're doing this, what Lagos Moms is all about, because some people don't necessarily know. And yes, it's open to dads, it's open to parents, aunties, uncles, anybody that really wants to know about raising children in today's world, the 21st century, the digital age, and what does that mean for us. So we're going to go through this presentation. It's a few slides. But I want you more to be taking away what can you do. So I don't want this to be a situation where we're continuing to say, oh, parenting is so hard. These children, we don't understand them. Children of nowadays, let's leave all of those sentiments aside, okay? And let's just focus on we're in the digital age. We need to know how to raise our children to be responsible digital citizens because they're digital citizens already. They're digital natives already. We can accept that. So what it means is we must know what to do to raise them to be responsible digital citizens. But before we get into the presentation, I want to bring a scenario to you, and I would like everybody to drop their comments in the chat group, in the chat. Anybody that wants to respond, kindly share it in the chat room with me. At the end of this, we're going to have time for Q&A. So I only want to talk for about maybe 30 minutes. And then please have your questions ready because I know you will have questions. And this is going to be interactive. We've kept it to this size so that we ensure that everybody gets their questions answered because all our families are slightly unique. Our children are different. The ages are different. The home setup is different. So we need to make sure that we go deeper. So we don't just tell you what to do and leave you with figuring how to implement. So the first case study or the first real life scenario I want to bring to everyone today, and I'd like us to take a few minutes, if you can respond in the chat room with what you think we should do. All right, so I said earlier that it takes a village to raise a child is the popular African proverb. And I say it takes an e-village to raise a child, which means that we're all in a digital world. So it's no more about whether or not your neighbor or your auntie or uncle or family lives in the neighborhood with you. It's the fact that we're parenting collectively. we're all in this digital world, which means we can all see what everybody is doing. So recently, I know a particular parent that's very tough. Her rules in her house are very strict. I would call her an authoritarian parent. And there are different parenting styles. We can also talk about that if we have time at the end. So she's an authoritarian parent. Her rules are her rules. She doesn't really give room for negotiation or having her children discuss how they feel about different things. So she has a teenager who's in secondary school, the equivalent of JS3, and she's told her child that you cannot get on TikTok. No, no, in fact, she's very strict on online matters because she doesn't understand it. Her decision is you just cannot have social media, you can't be online, you only go online for school. After that, that is it, right? I think she finally just gave the child a smartphone much later. Anyway, the scenario now is this particular girl has a TikTok account. All right, this particular girl has a TikTok account. And so her mother does not know that she has a TikTok account. So she's opened a TikTok account. She hasn't hidden who she is. And she's showing up regularly on TikTok, sharing content online. And her mother does not know. Now, in this context of, parenting and e-parenting and being a friend's keeper, neighbor's keeper, if you are a parent who's aware that somebody's child is on TikTok, the mother doesn't know, but the mother is proudly saying, my children are not on social media. I have told them they cannot be on social media, but this girl is on social media. Would you tell this mother? Would you tell her that her child is actually on TikTok and has a TikTok account? And this is a mother who's refused to accept the fact that the children today are just digital. And it's not necessarily about banning them from being online, but helping them to know how to show up online. Can you quickly just give me some feedback? Would you tell the mother, do you think it's right to, or should you just leave the situation? I would like to see, you can either send it to me privately or send it in the chat for everybody. Let's go. Let's be a bit interactive. What would you do in that scenario? I hope you heard the question. Or if somebody wants to speak also, you can just put your hand up quickly and I can take one comment. It depends on your relationship. Okay, that's a good. So somebody's saying here that it depends on your relationship with the mother. Okay. So if it depends on the relationship, if you're close enough, perhaps. If you're not, I guess maybe you just leave it and hope for the best and that the child doesn't get into any funny situations. Okay. Somebody else is saying I would tell her after advising her of the best way to handle it. Yes, all things considered, is a safety issue. Fantastic. Thank you for the comment. And I think the reason I'm putting this up is because it's a real life situation that happened recently. And I had to find myself asking myself, what do I do in this case? Because the child will obviously get into trouble because her mother is one that said, no screen time, you can't be on any social media platforms at all. And while you understand where the mother is coming from, in this children's life, not being on social media is almost like saying you cannot go to the playground. Their life is online. So it's not about banning them. Imagine you have a child and you say you can't go to the playground at all. And this was when there was no social media, no online platforms. And your child just has to sit at home by themselves watching their friends play on the playground because you said they can't go, versus talking about what your concerns are and making sure that your child understands why you're saying no. And obviously there's disobedience here. So there's a lot of things mixed in, but it's a real life scenario. And I want us to keep that in the back of our minds as we go through a lot of this information, is to think about that. What are your rules? Are your rules practical? Are they realistic? Or are you just putting your foot down without thinking about the fact that the children today, because they are digitally inclined, because they are digital natives, they cannot understand when you tell them they cannot be online. I was at a presentation once and a teenager got up very frustrated and said, I would prefer that my parents tell me what their concerns are and we discuss it together rather than just telling me I cannot be online. All right, so let's go into what are some of the reasons your children are on the internet. We've done a survey and there are quite a few reasons. Of course, they're on there to share funny pictures and videos. We know this is happening a lot with TikTok, right? All of them are following the latest skits and doing the dance and sharing their own versions. They are there to do assignments, to do research. The truth is, a lot of our children today, they're in a digital world and they need the internet, they need the online space to do homework, to research, In my children's school, for a long time, I said no computers, no computers. But by the time they got to primary 3, in their school, they were required to start using computers. So they had to get a laptop from school, primary 3 or primary 4. So in that scenario, it's no more about what I want and whether or not I don't want you online, but realizing that, you know what, you are going to be online. And so my conversations change from no online, no going to the website, no watching TV, all those rules change to say, what should you be doing when you're online? A lot of children also share photos, and they share photos of themselves or their family. So here we're going to talk a lot about that. When is sharing too much? Talking up to your children about consent. You can't just share a picture of anybody you feel like online without asking them. So we need to also teach our children boundaries, because they're in this virtual world. No matter where they are, no matter what they're doing, they can take a picture and share online. How do we help our children understand that there's a line between responsible sharing and oversharing? So the other day, this is practical. The other day, I think I was doing a silly dance, or I was being funny, and I noticed that my daughter had recorded me quietly, and I didn't know. She just did like this and recorded. And I said, "Did you just record me dancing?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Where are you planning to share that?" And she was like, of course now, mommy, I'm not going to share it anywhere. This is just for me. It was funny, and I'm going to send it to you. So you have to have those conversations, because your children need to know that it's not everything that should be captured online or shared online. Okay. What else are they online for? They're online to connect with friends and families. I mentioned the example earlier of children who play on the playground. When we were younger and there was no social media, there were no devices. After school, after homework, maybe you go to the community park, or if you live in an estate, you go play with children on the estate. But there were rules around being safe on the playground. You were expected to take turns. You don't push somebody on the seesaw or the swing. There were basic rules that we all understood, and that us, as parents today, you teach your child the same thing. You don't jump a queue, you wait your turn, you share, all of those things. We need to take that same lesson and move it online. We just need to think about it the same way. Online is just their playground now. That is just their playground now. So we need to realize that it is part of how they connect. So the internet, social media, it's not good or bad. It is good and bad. And that's what I want us to keep in mind, because if you come at a child always being negative about this online space, they are going to tune you out. Okay. All right. Nifesi, can you please mute? Okay. Now, so that's basically what I wanted us to think about in terms of connecting. And then lastly, they're online for entertainment. The truth is that because we're in a digital world, everybody can go online for entertainment. But we have to be careful as well. What are your children being entertained by? Right? The truth is that in the online space, the algorithms, the cookies, what that means basically is that anything you click on, the IP address is recognized, and then you are being given more and more of that information. I'm also a digital media marketing consultant, so I understand what's going on behind the scenes. It's called retargeting. So that means that whatever you click on online, it's being recorded that this particular device clicked on this type of information and probably wants more of this kind of information, which is why you might Google travel to France, and before you know it, you are seeing ads from travel agencies or airlines all the time, or you're seeing things telling you about tourism in France. The truth is that it's not somebody from your village following you. It's just the way, the internet is set up. Whatever you do online, whatever you search for online, it follows you everywhere. So you see the ads in your social media feed, you see the banner in your Gmail, and it follows you all over. It's called retargeting. So it's the same thing with your child. Whatever your child watches online, whether it's on YouTube, whatever channel, they're going to be seeing more and more of that. And because the systems, they don't know, the algorithms don't know whether it's a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old. Once a child clicks on something because he or she is curious about something, they're going to start seeing more of that information. So imagine a child who is curious, and let's be honest, maybe curious about sex and Googles that. In itself, it's nothing wrong with being curious about what it means or where the babies come from, questions like that. Everybody has always asked those questions. But if a child suddenly puts that in innocently on Google, guess what happens? They start to probably get a lot of adult inappropriate content being shared with them. So you must make sure that as a parent as well, you have software in place. So these are some of the areas we'll talk about, and please just get your questions ready and get ready to know what you can do to help your child show up safely online and stay protected as well. Okay, so now I want to talk about some of the bad guys online. We've talked about some of the things that children do online. Some of them are very innocent and noble, homework, research, connected. But there are certainly bad guys online. There are people waiting out there to do, there are people waiting out there to either take your information and use it the wrong way, or to lure you into doing something you shouldn't do. So first of all, the tell-it-all, that's the person that shares too much information about yourself, your family, your friends online. And here I'm going to give you a practical example. I was traveling earlier this year, and while at the airport, my daughter said, "Oh, XYZ," she mentioned her friend's name, "is here in the airport as well." And I said, "Oh, how do you know?" Do you know how she knew? Snapchat showed the location, because Snapchat actually has a feature that tags you, that follows you, and basically says where you are. So Snapchat showed that this particular friend of hers was in the airport, and the avatar of the girl showed her with a carrier bag, with a travel bag. So my daughter reached out to her and said, "Oh, are you traveling?" And she said, "Yes, I'm actually with her family." She said, "Yes, I'm in the airport right now. How did you know?" So that's an example of, you might say, well, it wasn't her fault, but this is where we must have these conversations with our children. Whatever social media they are using, they need to be careful about what privacy setting they have set up. Because why should anybody know where you are at the moment, knowing that you are traveling? That's a bit too much information. So we need to be careful with our children that they don't share too much. And even we as parents, we need to be careful. I see some parents, I'll share a picture of a child saying, "Bode is starting school today. I'm so proud of Bode." You show the name, you show the picture of Bode wearing his uniform. The logo of the uniform is clearly evident. Maybe you've even taken the picture in front of your house, and in the background, there's a landmark that shows that maybe your house is right beside Civic Center. That's too much information that anybody out there who has any negative thought pattern or is a cyber criminal or whatever it is, you are a good person, so you can't think that. If you give them too many clues, they can figure out who you are, where you live, where your child goes to school, and you just don't want to give that much information out there. So let's be aware that too much information is quite dangerous. Then we'll talk about the intruder, the hacker. This is the person, in fact, now it's not even just a person. Now it is also just robots that have been set up automatically to just randomly try to hack systems. It's almost like for fun, right? So they might try to access your account or personal information without your permission. When they get the information, you have no clue what they will do with it. So here we have to be very careful about how to protect ourselves from hackers. And in fact, a lot of the reports of being attacked online, so cybercrime, a lot of it is actually about being hacked, either your systems being hacked, your computer being hacked, your email being hacked. So we need to be careful about that and teach our children what the dangers are there. I want to talk now about clickbait and the phisher. This is the person that gets your information by tricking you. We'll talk about that. All of us have been tricked somehow or the other. I still got tricked this week, and I'll tell you about that as well. The troublemaker, this is the person that's the bully, catfishing. I don't know if you've heard that term. We'll talk about all those things as well. So these are some of the bad guys, bad things online you'll think about. And the reason we call it bad guys is you want to make it conversational with your children, depending on the age. But I believe these conversations need to start from as early as 5 years old, really. And you need to just make the conversation light, talk about it in a way that they can understand, they can engage with you, and they know what you're talking about. Okay, so let's talk about the tell-it-all. This is the person that tells everything online for the whole world. So we all know our children. In fact, children are not really on Facebook anymore, but Instagram, TikTok, Discord, House Party. I don't know how many of them you've heard. I actually have a quiz on our website, lagosmoms.com/quiz, that has a quiz you can take on how digital savvy you are as a parent. It'll be interesting if you take it, because there we ask you some questions and you figure out where you fall in terms of, do you even know what's going on in the digital space? So we need to help our children avoid telling too much information online. As I just mentioned, the example of the child in the airport is that cyber criminals are are scrolling. They are looking for who they can take advantage of. So you want to teach your child to pause before they post anything and ask themselves, should I really be sharing this? Could it harm my reputation or somebody else? Could there be a challenge down the line? So if you teach your child to pause before they share, it helps them learn to process before they share anything online. So it's really, really important that we do that, is that before our children post anything online and before they become active social media users, you have taught them to pause before they share, before they post, before they comment. Because this comes into digital footprints, this idea that whatever you share online stays online forever. So you want to teach your child before it gets to that stage that it can harm them negatively, to get used to that, having that muscle of pausing before I share. And we have many examples of children who shared inappropriate things online, and it's affected them. It's affected them getting visas. It's affected them when they applied to school and they got admission. Sometimes they got admitted. And then, Nifesi, please actively mute everybody that's not speaking right now. Thank you. It affected them even getting visas, getting admission to school. We have some that got admission to school, and then the school realized it was really good. Okay, so I'm just in the comments quickly, the chat. Let me not go there because it will distract me. But so you want to be very careful that your child understands that what you share online stays online. It's the same way in the physical world. You will tell a child, don't just talk to anybody. Be careful what you share with strangers. It's the same thing online. So let's have the same conversations, and then avoid sharing personal information publicly. So like your address, your phone number. Your children should know that nobody should ask you online to share your address or your phone number, or you're having a birthday party. I had one case study I did, and somebody was doing a birthday party. You know how we all send evites now, Abby? So somebody had an evite that they had created to invite people to their child's birthday party, and this evite had the child's name. Of course, we're celebrating Bode's 10th birthday party. Come and join us. And on the evite, he had their address, the parent's phone number. And then guess what? One child that was invited took that electronic invitation, and posted it on their social media handle and said, I can't wait to go and celebrate with my friend on their birthday. Red flag. Guess what? The address was there. Everything was there. So you have just told the whole world where Bode lives. So we just need to raise this awareness, because when you do, everybody thinks twice. And remember what I said in the first point, pause before you post. It's a major, major thing everybody can learn. All right, the intruder, we're talking about the hacker. This is the person that's just waiting to get your information. And one of the easiest ways that they can hack any system is by figuring out your password. And the way you can make this practical for a child is, if you have your house key, if your child has a house key, or maybe they're not old enough to have the house key, anybody can understand. Your key is for you and the people that live in that home. It should be safely kept, right? You don't just give your key to anybody. It's the same thing with a password. All our passwords are keys to our information, our accounts. So you want to teach your children, and even for you parents, make your passwords unique. Don't make it easy to guess. Don't do 1, 2, 3, 4. Or if it's your child's name, you put Bode, or you put their birth date. All those things are so easy to guess. You want to make sure that your password is unique. You mix characters, you mix uppercase, lowercase. I know people say, but I'm going to forget. It's better that you have somewhere you note it. And there are many softwares online or apps that help you remember your passwords. It's better, but I know you can have a routine, a sequence that you always use. So for example, you could say your sequence is going to be the first initial, the last initial of your child's name. You're going to mix it with birth date. You're going to put a character in between. Create a kind of system that you use, but please don't use the same password for everything. Your email, your social media, your online banking, everything. You can't do that. It's too dangerous to do it that way. And the truth is that the hackers now, they are so sophisticated. So all it takes is for them to figure out one password, and then they can access everything else. And you want to tell your children as well, don't give out your password. Nobody should have your password. It is yours. Apart from maybe you as a parent, you should have their password so that you can access their accounts at any time in a case where you need to protect them. But don't share passwords. When they're using public systems in school, libraries, they shouldn't click remember my password there. That's like putting your house address for everybody. When we relate it to the physical for them as well, it's helpful for them to understand why we're talking about it. And as a parent as well, who's a digital alien, it's easy for you to think, all right, okay, this is what this is, comparable to. That's true. I wouldn't give my key to just anybody. It's the same way if somebody calls you and says, I'm calling from your bank, and so I need your password to access your account. A lot of people fall for that and they give them the password. Nobody, no reputable company will ever call you to ask you for your password. They won't. So you are better off erring on the side of caution. Too many people have also lost funds or access to their accounts because they gave out information that they shouldn't have. All right, so let's remember the hacker is out there, is working hard to break into systems, and our children can also fall victim to this. All right, let's go through a bit more and then we're going to have questions. If you have questions, please start noting them down. You can drop it in the Q&A, or when we get to that point in another few minutes, I'll start taking your questions as well. Now, I want to talk about the clickbait, the phisher. That's the one that gets access to your personal information by pretending to be from reputable organizations or someone you know. So the quick example I mentioned before was maybe you get a text or an email saying that they're from your bank, maybe GT Bank, and that they want you to click here because they're trying to update their details. And if you click here and put in your name, your address, your password, we can verify that you are really the owner of this account. This is not far-fetched. These things actually happen. And because nowadays it's not difficult at all for me to get your name, to get your first name, your last name, nowadays phishers are actually able to personalize their attack on you. So they will write you personally. They will say, Dear Yeti. So you will feel, oh, this person really knows me. But guess what? It's not that difficult to actually personalize information for you now. There are systems that allow you to do it. Even I know how to do that. I can send an email that writes to you. So you feel that that email is personal to you. So we must be careful that we don't fall into that trap that because they've used our first name or our children's name, it means they know us. All right. So some of the things we can do to help our children is teach them to pay attention to, oh, wow. Teach them to pay attention to the, hang on a second. Okay. Teach them to pay attention to the, what's it called now, to what they're seeing online. If the offer seems too good to be true, it probably is. So if your child sees something that says, oh, you know what, you can click here to win a PS5, it's probably too good to be true. So teach them that it's not everything they see they should click on, because the minute they click on it, you don't know what the cyber criminal at the back end has planned. So once they click on it, it can introduce malware into their system. That can be how a hacker gets access to their system. You don't know. Sometimes I've run through one of these before, and when they clicked on the link to say, you can win a PS5, if you see the information he asked, their name, their date of birth, where they live, and a lot of children, because they don't know, they're innocent, they'll put this information in, and that's where the cyber criminals can kick in. So we have to teach our children, if it's too good to be true, don't do it. If you are not sure, don't do it. Ask an adult. Then children also need to learn how to pay attention to the URL, the email, the website address. Somebody who wants to do something funny will create an email link that seems very close to the real one. But if it doesn't start www.gtb, guaranteetrustbank.com, but maybe you see www.gtb/open, there's a way they will write it that is not legit. So teach your children, if it's not safe, if the email address, the website address doesn't clearly match what you expect, or it has a different, prefix, so www.open.gt, there's a way they would do it that it won't be exact. And if they're not sure, they should go to the website of the company and see what the URL sequence is. So we have to teach our children to be detectives. That's the truth. In this online world, we won't always be with them. You will not always be with them. But guess what? Many times they'll be online. You will not even be there. So if we teach them how to show up online, they know how to be empowered. Okay. If the person is asking them, or the site is asking them to reveal personal information, we want to tell our children to, give me a second, to know how to run. Okay. And then some passwords, some websites will have a green padlock at the beginning. That shows that it is a secure website. Once it has that HTTPS dot backslash backslash, that is a secure website. So even if, for example, you're shopping online, and if this is for you too as parents, you're trying to do a lot of shopping online. A lot of us are doing e-commerce nowadays. You want to make sure that the site you go to purchase something from is secure. Because if it's not, and you put in your account details, your card details, I'm sorry, they have access to your information. And then teach our children not to download things from sites they don't know about. Don't download any app from just any random website. Make sure it's in the Google Play Store. Make sure it's in the Apple Store. Let your children learn and teach them now how to be a detective. So once they see something online, they're able to quickly ask themselves a few questions. And it works. I've done this training for 5-year-olds, and it's been amazing that 5-year-old went home and told her dad that, it's not everything you see online that means it is true. You have to make sure that you are able to check a few things to be sure that what you see on Google is true. And the father couldn't believe it, that at 5, this child could come home and tell him. It was because the child attended this kind of training for children, and they understood that, not everything I see online is real or true. I have to know how to confirm. And we can absolutely teach our children as young as 5 to know this information. And it's a conversation you must have regularly, consistently, and discuss it with them along the way, because they can forget. They are children. All right. So teach them not to download just anything from anywhere, because every time they download, they're giving their information away, and they're giving access to potential cyber criminals. Now let's talk about the troublemaker. Yes, these are the cyber bullies, the ones who pass information around about you. The truth is that cyberbullying is on the increase, especially with the pandemic, the lockdown. A lot of people are online. Cyberbullying has gone through the roof, unfortunately. And cyberbullying essentially is just bullying, except that it's now happening online. So what does that mean? That means somebody who maybe gets in touch with your child, maybe they're playing a video game innocently. The video games nowadays are very different. They are not like the 2D ones we used to play as children, Tetris or Mario. Now they are very immersive. It's virtual reality. It's very engaged. You can talk to anybody. There's a chat feature. So anybody can come into those video games, especially groomers. They come into the video games, they find a child, they connect with the child, they find a way to get the child off the video game to go in and start having conversations with them elsewhere. And then from there, all sorts of things happen. Sometimes they ask the child to send a picture of themselves in a compromising situation. Maybe the child sends it one time. The person now has it and starts asking for more information, right? And maybe the child now gets like, oh my God, what did I do? I shouldn't have sent that particular picture of myself in my underwear, or I lifted my blouse, because they're asking them for these things. And then the child now says, I'm not going to do it anymore. They start to threaten the child. If you don't send it to me. And by this time, these people who are groomers, they've asked your child everything, their name, where they live, the school they go to. So they tell the child, if you do not continue doing this thing, or send me more pictures, or whatever it is they want from the child, I am going to blast your picture to everybody in your school. I know the school you go to. This is real. These are things that are happening. So please, you can't afford to be permissive or just be like, I don't understand, so my children will figure it out. You have to have these conversations with them, so that when your child is playing a video game, if somebody they don't know comes and start chatting with them, they shouldn't respond. If somebody comes and even says, I'm your friend down the road, anybody online can say they're whoever they want to be. So we need to see it as empowering our children to have these conversations. So tell them about the troublemaker online. That's the person that comes online because they have ulterior motives and you don't know that. So you have to be careful. Is this somebody I know? Can I verify it's somebody I know? If somebody is contacting you and asks you to share any kind of picture with them or any information, don't respond. Don't answer them. And your child can be accessed in so many ways. So please, it's not about saying my child is not on social media. It can be WhatsApp, it can be email, it can be any platform. But once your child is a digital native and is in this world, you must have these conversations with them. Teach them not to join gossip, not to join rumors online. Teach them to be kind online. It's your choice what you do online. I tell my children all the time, showing up online, it's your choice. You can choose to be a responsible person online. Don't join the rumors. Don't join abusing somebody online, just walk on by. Tell them to talk to a parent or trusted adult if they ever feel there's anything they're concerned about. And parents, honestly, I say we are the most influential influencers. We need to be there so that our child can bring anything they see online to us so that we can help them. But if you're always dramatic, you're always shouting, you're always saying you can't do this, why are you online? You're always blaming them. Remember, we talked about the parenting styles before. If your parenting style is very tough and hard, your child won't come to you. And you don't want that because the online world is waiting with arms wide open to suck them into doing things they shouldn't. All right. If your child, for example, is being bullied by anyone online, let them teach them to take screenshots of it. Because if you want to complain, if you want to report, if you want to block them, you can do that, but you need to have some evidence. So if there's somebody that's constantly coming at your child online, teach your child to take screenshots, or you do it, and then you share that information with the platforms. It could be school. It might be school. You have to go to the school and tell the school, this particular children are bullying my children online. And parents, it's very important we let this sink in, is that a child who's being bullied online, it's very terrible because in the past, if it was physical bullying, at least is in school. People can see it. People can hopefully stop it. And the bullying in school does what? It ends when they close and they go home. But now with cyberbullying, if a child is being bullied online, that bullying continues 24/7. The child gets home, the bullying continues. They go to school. So it's a very different world. And we need to make sure that our children have the words, the agency, the ability to recognize that this is bullying. All right. And lastly, teach them that a stranger online is still a stranger. Absolutely. I can tell you now that my name is Mr. Peter and I live in Australia. Or I say that I'm a child and I live down the road from you, but actually I'm not. So teach your children that because somebody says they're who they are online doesn't necessarily mean that they're that. We're not trying to make them paranoid, but we want to teach them to understand that it's possible that, this person might not be who they say they are. So teach them, how do I recognize that? Okay. Now, we want to teach them about identifying fake news. I'm sure a lot of us here are on social media, or sorry, not social media. A lot of us here for sure probably have WhatsApp, right? A lot of us have WhatsApp. So how do you identify fake news versus rumors? So many of us get blasts. So many of us get forwards, right? And they're not necessarily true. And a lot of us will get it, will believe it, and will forward it to someone. And that's adults. So imagine a child who doesn't even know how to identify, is it fake, is it real? They see something immediately, they believe it. We need to teach them to pause. Remember, we're raising responsible digital citizens. And with that, we need to teach them to be a bit like detectives. So look at this scenario here. There are two stories. Both of them have the same picture, and both of them seem to have the same storyline. Okay, I'm curious, does anybody know which one is legit and which one is fake story? Does anyone want to drop quickly which one they think is real? Just say quickly, left or right, which one do you think is real? Yeah, Guardian should be real. All right. But that's for you, an adult that knows who Guardian is. So you assume that Guardian is real. But for some children, they don't know. They don't know which is which. So you need to teach them. How do they know? Which is why we have the same course for children, where we go into a bit more detail and we make it very realistic for them. And for them, we do a lot of case studies so that they are able to recognize that, this is what mom and dad talked about, or this is what we learned in that particular training that we went for. This is how I determine if this is real or not. Of course, the one on the right is real. And part of the way to know this, and even for parents, for adults, is the fact that if an article is too sensational, you probably want to be a bit wary. And also because of the way things are now, once somebody drops an article, so many blogs, so many different websites will pick it up. So if a child Googles something, the first thing that comes up about that particular story doesn't mean that it's the right or the true story. So if a story is too good to be true or the headline is too sensational, you want to teach your children to pay attention to that. So on the right-hand side, this says Danny Young speaks on YouTube ban of Tiwa Savage's one. So it's just telling you a fact. Okay, this person spoke about this. If you are interested, you will click on the story to see more. On the left-hand side, it says Danny Young reveals why he took down Tiwa Savage's video from YouTube. That's a bit more, sensational. So teach your children to say, really, Kemi Filani, you might know them, you might not know them. Teach them to know how to pay attention to websites, website headings, the website address, and also because something comes up at the top on Google doesn't mean that it's the right or the legit story. So this is just one practical example we thought to show. How do you start to know which one is real? We'll teach them about some of the reputable sites. Wikipedia is not even necessarily a reputable site because anybody can put any information on Wikipedia. They try to clean it up, but there's no guarantee. So teach your children that, Guardian, Punch, CNN, there are certain websites for news that they should know. Those are the sites that we gravitate towards. Any blog can decide to make a spin on something. And I'm spending a lot of time on this because it's happening more and more and more. Disinformation, misinformation, false news, fake news is going around so much. We need to teach our children to remember, be detectives. When they see something online, they should ask themselves a few questions. They should check a few sites and make sure that it's reputable. All right. So how are you responsible online? These are some of the things you can take away and say, all right, I'm going to start walking through some of this with my children. Teach them to pause and think before they post, before they share, before they comment online, before they reshare, they retweet. Teach them to please pause and think before they post. They should think, how will this affect somebody else? Is it true? Is it kind? Should I really be sharing this? That ability in your brain, in their brain as well, that ability to pause and think before they do something makes a huge difference between a child sharing something that will hurt them down the line and something that is, harmless. They should be kind to others. The same way you should be kind in the physical, you should be kind online. Research shows that because we're behind a screen, it's very easy to be detached as a human and to not think about the fact that the other person on the other side, who you're either being mean to, mean comments, is a human being. And we unfortunately, a lot of adults to do it. There's some horrible comments you will see on some blogs or some social media sites that are really attacking somebody. So we have to teach our children to be kind. If the next generation is going to be better, we need to start now. We need to teach them to be respectful, both online and offline. So we need to make sure that they understand that in the online space, you must be respectful. And if somebody is not being respectful of you, you can do something about it. Teach them to respond, not react. That means that, remember, everything links to this pause and think. If somebody says something to you, you don't have to just go and say the first thing that comes to you. All right? Because digital footprints are really important. Let me share a quick story here that I heard about, I think 2 years ago. A gentleman from, I believe it's Pakistan, he got into a top university in the US. I think it was Harvard. And when he had gotten admission, he had traveled to the US. He got to the airport. And when customs was checking him, because he was following some kind of terrorist or somebody that was wanted, they held him and they questioned him and they asked him, why was he following this person? They basically deported him. They sent him back to his country. And the school and everybody had to really get involved to try and get him to come back to the US to start school. So teach your children that whatever they do online, who they follow, who they comment on, it's painting a picture of you. And nowadays, even for visas, they're asking you to share your social media handles. There's a lot of information that we are sharing freely on the internet. So we want to teach our children that you want to show up online and use it for your own good. All right. Now, don't say what you cannot say to the person offline, online. That's another thing. Teach our children that, if you can't say it to somebody to their face, don't go online and be a coward and hide. And when you teach them, this is the same thing. People that they think are their friends, some of them are really mean online to them. They say nasty things to them. Teach them that that's not really a friend. That's not really a friend. So our children need to learn that as well. They need to be able to ask for help. Some of the things you can do is, number one, be available. Number two, teach them that whatever platform they are using, there is a way to block people and there is a way to report. So if they are on, I don't know, TikTok, for example, Instagram, first of all, go in and set their privacy setting, make it private. If your child is online and on this platform, there's no reason the whole world should be seeing their pictures or following them. So it's either you keep them off, or if they're going to be on, teach them to be private, right? So that example we started with at the beginning with the girl that's on TikTok and her parents don't know. What do you do? She's hiding her use of TikTok. So that even means the parents are not even aware they're not online. Nobody has gone to tell them, maybe because everybody's like, it's not my business, or they don't even know, right? So if your child is going to be online, who are they following? Is their account private? Those are some things you can do to keep them protected. Tell them to be positive and to be open to learning, because the internet is fantastic. There's a lot of good you can do online. So let's teach them to use it for good, right? Not only is always bad, bad, bad. What are the good things about it online as well? And they want to be able to ask for permission. Teach them to ask for permission before they post something about anybody online. This is one of the biggest things about consent. Can you just take a picture of somebody randomly and you share it because you feel like, did you ask them for permission before you share that picture? And it's the same thing for them as well. Somebody shouldn't just take your picture and share it without asking you. But the children today are so trigger happy. They're holding a phone, bam, they take a picture. Anything is happening, bam, they take a picture. And for this one, what I'll say for a lot of parents is, kindly take your children's devices away from them. Yes, if your child is going to be online, kindly take their devices away from them at bedtime, because there's something called blue light, and the blue light affects the melatonin that needs to be released to help us go to sleep. So if your child is in their room with their devices, whether it's tablets, phone, laptop, late at night, it affects their sleep. It affects their quality of sleep. The other thing that happens with children that have their devices with them at night is that during the night, maybe they get up to go to the bathroom. Guess what a lot of them do? And they've opened up. They will pick up their phone when they go to the bathroom at night to see if somebody has pinged them, to see if somebody has spoken to them. And then that's where that comes in, where they get distracted and they suddenly fall into that rabbit hole of sending messages online. So take your devices from your children, have bedtime rules, and make sure that your children have to drop their devices at particular times every night. Okay. So, and then the last, we're almost done. Then in terms of what you can do. So we've talked about the good, the bad, how to protect your children, why you should have conversations with them, when you should start conversing with them from as young as 5. Start discussing online matters regularly. I want to talk about this particular software. It's called the Google Family Link. It's a family parental control service by Google, and it allows parents to adjust parameters for their child's devices. So you can restrict content, you can approve or disapprove apps. Before your child downloads an app, they should ask you, they should check with you. You can set screen times. So you can decide that, they're only going to be on for 3 hours a day. At 9 p.m., their devices are going to shut down so that they can go to bed. There's so many things you can do. You can also restrict content. You can say, anything as an adult website or that's about porn or gambling, whatever, you can block these things to protect your child, because your child is curious. We're all born curious, right? But how do we make sure that when they're online and Google is waiting for them to give them any info they need, how do we protect them? But let's also remember that rules without relationship leads to rebellion. So don't just put these controls in place, block them, cut off them, their device at 9 o'clock at night or whatever time, without having conversations with them about why you're doing it. And that's where intentional parenting comes in. Have conversations with them. So this is why I'm doing this. I'm giving you bedtime on your devices because it affects your sleep. If your sleep is affected, it will affect everything else. So you want to have the conversation. Not that they have to like all your rules, but they have to understand it. And that's where I come from as well with my parenting style, and when I coach parents as well, is your children have to understand your rules. Don't just lay it down like you're a dictator and say, that is it. Nobody should ask me any questions. It's not very helpful. You want children who can think. You want children who know why you are doing what you do, and then you can take it from there. All right, so this is one example of a parental software you can download. The other thing you can do is on platforms like YouTube, you can actually turn off autoplay. So automatically, autoplay means you watch one video, the next one comes, and the next one comes, and the next one comes. All of that excessive screen time is bad for your children. What you want to do is give your child the ability to control what they consume online and what they're doing online. All right. And one more thing I'll add before we start taking questions, please drop your questions, is that children are also being exposed to a lot of adult content, much more than ever before. Children are seeing porn as young as 5, 6, 7 years old. I still had a parent call me a few weeks ago, found out that her 10-year-old was addicted to porn online. And the boy said innocently one day, something popped up. We talked about clickbait earlier. Something popped up and he was curious. We're all curious, let's be honest. Try and think back to when you were a teenager or you were 10 years old. Imagine you had the internet in your hand. So he clicked on it and it turned out to be a pornographic site. Unfortunately, he got addicted and he only told his parents much later because they found out that he was having some issues. He couldn't sleep well. He was always kind of hiding to do things. He was always taking his computer to his room by himself. Have your children, their laptop should be somewhere you can all see their screen. So there are things we can do to protect them because the internet is big and ugly, but it's also good, right? So I just wanted to bring some of these things to you. I know it's a lot, but the truth is that the more aware that we are, the easier it is for us to start to make the right choices and train our children on how to be um, responsible when they're online. So this particular series, like I said, is brought to you by Lagos Moms and is supported by Google. Google is really into making sure that families are also making the right choices. And one of the things that we do at Lagos Moms, and I identified very, very long ago, is that this digital matter, we have to be on top of it because our children are being exposed to so much because a lot of parents don't even know what's lurking behind. So when we keep some of these things in mind, we can help our children. All right, I know I'm sure there are lots of questions. I'm sure let's see what we can get through before we wrap up. Let me first see, do we have direct questions? Okay, I have some who wrote to me directly, so I'm going to just quickly pick those up. What do you have to say about facial recognition features that particularly recognize eyes, pupils of children and pops up inappropriate content when they are on their devices, knowing that they probably can't skip such on? Yes, so this is a situation where there's something called facial recognition features that's happening. So a child gets on a device, and I've had a particular scenario like that. A child's iPad was showing her certain things because it recognized her when she picked up the iPad. The thing she was seeing was different from what her parents were seeing. So the truth is that some of these things are really happening. What you can do is, once again, go into the particular device. You can turn off certain things. So try and turn off certain things as much as possible. Try and consume the content your child is consuming with them. So what I mean by that is, if you leave a child with a device and you never pick up your child's devices, you never spend some time with them when they are consuming content online, you will not know if they are being exposed to inappropriate things. The truth is that the world is moving fully digital, fully virtual. I don't know if you heard about Facebook. They've changed their name to Meta. Now they're trying to create a metaverse. So this idea where the virtual, the reality, the fake, everything is being mixed into this real virtual, almost like sci-fi. The movies we used to watch when we were younger, all this sci-fi stuff, it is now here. So we have to be on top of it because, even when you think you know something, you come up 2 weeks, 3 weeks again, and you find there's a whole different, area that's opened up in the virtual world. But thank you for asking that question. It is happening. Facial recognition is showing people different content based on who it is that's looking at the screen. But there are a lot of ways you can turn off some of those facial recognition software from working on your system. And like I said, please consume content sometimes with your children on their devices so you kind of see what's coming up and what they're seeing as well. Last week, I have a weekly radio show, and this week we talked about the rise of the AI influencer. 42% of Gen Z and millennials in a survey that I saw did not know that the person they were following on social media was actually a robot. There's one particular one called Shugu.gram on Instagram. She's a digital model. You would not know, if you don't know how to look for the details, you would think she's a human, and this is just her page. So there's a lot going on where the virtual, the fake, the real, everything is blurring into one. So you cannot just throw your child out there and say, good luck, I wish you the best. It won't work. So somebody here is asking, will there be a recording of this session shared to our emails? Yeah, we can do that for people that are registered, and attended. We will share a recording of this for some time. Yes. Someone else is asking, should children have access to devices? Very young children, once again, it depends. According to the American Pediatric Association, they say children 24 months, and under should have 0 screen time. Some people say it's drastic, they shouldn't. It's up to you. But I personally believe that if a child is very young, they shouldn't have access to devices when they're not supervised. So if your child is 2, 3 years old, I didn't allow my children to have an iPad. I said, it's my iPad. You can use it sometimes. And that changed the tone. But if a 3-year-old has their own iPad, you give it to them, you put that little rubber thing around it, and you let them be on it nonstop, it's not good for them. So you want to reduce access, you want to limit the amount of time they spend online, and all screen time is not the same. So there's junk screen time and there's good quality screen time. So a 3-year-old online learning their languages or learning nursery rhymes, but an adult is doing it with them. It's very different from a 3-year-old who's allowed to watch maybe Paw Patrol from morning to night. So screen time can be very different. So that's what I'll say to that. It's very specific to the child, to the family, and what they are doing online, and who is being there to monitor them when they're there as well. Yes, yes, and this information helps not just children, but adults as well. Absolutely, absolutely. You know, this information is not just for children. We're talking to parents, and with parents, we're doing 2-for-1. You are learning, and you're also going to be able to then teach your children what they need to do to be safe online. And like I said, this curriculum for parents is from the time your child is 3, 4, 5, you got to be having these conversations because it changes. I have teenagers now, and our conversations are different. They're very different, but I cannot imagine if I had never had any conversation about online at all before. Because of what I do, it's been very useful. It's been very easy to evolve with them. But no matter, you know that saying, when you wake up is your morning, it is fine. If your child is 19 and this is the first time you're having this kind of conversation or having this awareness, it's okay. You can start having conversations with them because there's also, you know, we can't go into everything today, so we're focusing just on online safety, but there's a lot in the back going on in the back as well, as you know, from a therapist perspective. Psychotherapy, mental health is being affected severely by people who abuse screen time or who are addicted to excessive screen time. So you want to make sure that your child doesn't get into that addicted nature, or your child doesn't fall into the trap of the cyber criminals online. Okay. Yes, Kofo, thanks for that question. Thank you for saying it was educative. It's a pleasure to always bring this information to parents. That's what we're all about. We're planning to run a few of these for children as well. So we started this one in this series of trainings for parents, but we plan to have for children age appropriate. So slightly younger children, you know, the twins, you know, and then teenagers and older. I'm also talking to a lot of young adults, and for parents here, even if your child is older or maybe even younger, please realize that a lot of young adults today, they have a lot of mental health challenges, and a lot of it is traced to online access, social media, what people are saying online, how they're comparing themselves online, FOMO, you know, fear of missing out, looking at people online whose lives seem perfect. And because, you know, our brains, when we see something, our brain cannot say, oh, that person has photoshopped. A lot of our young adults, the young children who are born digital, they don't know that because I show a perfect picture and I've used an app to take off 10 pounds and make my tummy flatter, my cheek bones higher, they don't know that. So we have to teach them that, look, what you see online is not necessarily true. So you want to just teach your brain to slow down and pause and look and say, this is nice, but you know what? I wonder if the person has touched it up. That's just enough to be able to not just consume, take it in, and then they start to compare themselves, which is why a lot of our young adults are having body image issues because they're comparing themselves to things they're seeing online. So let's not think, you know, whatever, they will be fine. The truth is, I'm seeing too many young adults who are struggling. And we as parents, if your children are younger, you can avoid that from happening today. Okay, let me see if there's anything else that I've missed. Okay, the Google Online feature. Let me go back to it. This is what it's called. Oh, this is what it's called, Google Family Link. You can pick it up from the Google Play Store. There are many other ones. There's another one called, this is free, and it works well, and it's particularly good for Android users. There's another one that I've personally used for many years, but like I said, when your children get older, some of these stuff. It doesn't really work, but you want to do the work while you can do the work. So there's one called Custodio. Nifesi, if you can quickly Google it on lagosmoms.com, there's a link called Parental Software. If you can click on that and drop it in, here's another one that allows you to put it across different devices, whether it's Apple or Android, and you can do certain things like block adult content, block gambling, block mature content, put screen time rules in place. We have to be a police at a particular age or in our children's lives. Parenting changes. There's a time when you are like the police, you are the detective, you are the one protecting everything. Then you start to evolve to being more like a coach, right? Where you're helping the child to make the right decisions. But you can't be a coach to a child that doesn't know what the rules and parameters are. And then your parenting also will evolve. No, Nifesi, please go to lagosmoms.com and type in Parental Software. I want you to put the exact link so that when they click on it, it takes them directly to that article, because this just takes them to the website. I want that specific link. So just go to lagosmoms.com and search in Parental Software. The article will come up. So yeah, I was saying that you want to make sure you put some software in place. And then as they get older, you are more like a consultant, right? As a parent, you're more like a consultant. You are there for them. You're ready to help them. They should know that you are always there for them. If they need help, they're dealing with something, you want them to come to you, right? At those older ages, you can't force it. Same thing now, if your child is 19, you can't be asking them, that was your device, I want you to turn it in, I'm going to put screen time protection in place. You can't. Anything more than 16, honestly, you cannot monitor your children like that. By then, it's more of a conversation. All right, so Mrs. Peterson, I hope I answered your question on that one, on the Google Online Safety feature. Thank you for the great comments. I'm glad you found this training useful. We plan to run much more of these types. We're also starting a group for parents because something is always coming up, something new. So we want to have a group where on a regular basis, we're having webinars like this. We're bringing up a new topic every week. Not every week, every month. And we're getting experts to come in to talk about different things that have to do with parenting, challenges, and all of that. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your kind comments. And we wanted to make it 10 to 11. We know it's a Saturday, it's busy. And thank you for joining. We had over 100 people register for this particular session. And so thanks for those of you that showed up today. Yes, we'll be arranging for children for sure. And we will get that information to you as well. Does this time work for you? If we're running it for children, is this a good time for children? I would like to just figure, if you can just tell me quickly, if we're going to run this same type of training specifically for children, does this time work? 10 to 11, so 1 hour. All right, people are saying perfect time. This is a good time. All right. And please tell your friends, this parenting business, this village matter, e-village matter, there's no use me knowing all these things for my children. And then when my child comes to your house, my child is exposed to all kinds of stuff because you don't do anything to protect them. All right. So please make sure that it's something that tell other parents, your children's teachers, they should come for this training. This is free, right? This particular section is this information to get you started. Please, 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 let's tell other people. The more we know, the more we protect our children. It's really for them. Yes, that's the truth. Somebody's writing to me privately here that you share this information with parents. They're not going to make, some of them will not make the time, but guess what? They're giving their children devices worth God knows how much, and they're leaving it and they're hoping for the best. It's the hope is not a strategy. I always say that, especially with parenting in the digital age, hope is not a strategy. You need to know what you're protecting your children from. And at the same time, you need to use the online space in a positive way and teach your children how to use it in a positive way, because the future is different. Things keep changing. So we'll continue to do what we do. For the parents that show up, we're thankful. And we continue to make the noise so that even if it's a little bit that drops, everybody will take something from it. All right. Okay, someone is saying that this time is not good for them. If you can let me know what time will be better for you. Obviously, it can't be perfect. We can't get everybody, but maybe we can have sometimes morning, weekends, and maybe sometimes we can do in the evenings as well. So if you can just let me know what some of the times that are good for you. Okay, we will get you the recording. If you attended today and you tuned in today, you will get the recording of this. All right, and with that said, we are officially done with this online safety for parents training. that we did today. If you have any questions, you know where to find us. LagosMoms.com is our website. I know Nifesi dropped the link to another option for parental software above. So if you click on that, it takes you directly to that other software. So even if you don't use that software, if you use Google Family Link, at least it tells you what's possible and why you should have it. All right. So at Lagos Moms on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, you know, we're just starting to show up on TikTok. You can follow us anywhere. You can also email us at yeti@lagosmoms.com if you have specific questions or anything that you would like to know. And lastly, if you'd like us to come to your children's school, you can also let us know, and we'll be happy to come and train the students in your children's school as well, because our children are not by themselves. They are living with other people. So thank you so much for being here. We're done for now, and I hope this was useful. If you have any feedback, please also let us know. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a lovely Saturday, have a lovely weekend, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Bye, and thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Ma.
You're welcome. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for coming.